Shut up and sit down.
I am a radical libertarian.
And we don't want the government to do a damn thing.
The current state of politics is unsustainable, politically, economically.
You deserve better.
It is about supporting, platforming, and assisting the people who are out here actually doing the fight.
You just take an issue that's important to you and do something.
There you go.
You are part of that declaration against tyranny.
Because no one brings tear gas to a gunfight.
This conversation gives me a little more hope for the future.
The one, the only.
Fight for liberty. This is the cherry on top.
This is FSM.
Hello, fighters. Welcome back to another episode of Fight for Liberty right here on Free Speech Media. I'm your host, David Fite, here to get you pumped up about the men and women out there making the world a freer place through politics, activism, business, personal choices, and so many more things. Tonight, we are talking to one of the most fearsome and promising libertarian politicians in the country. But before we bring him out, let's hear a little bit from the sponsors for this episode. First, as always, our good friends at Blood of Tyrants Wine, the official spirit of 1776. Now with a brand new energy tea called Liquid Freedom that will have you refreshed and energized to go out and fight for liberty all day long. If you're looking for a nice night in while sipping on the blood and tears of your enemies and supporting the destruction of the tyrannical state, look no further than Blood of Tyrants Wine. Choose between a nice Merlot or a Pinot Grigio or both. Distributed by activists you know and love, bloodoftyrants.wine is the place to go. Use promo code FSM to get 10% off your first order. Again, that is bloodoftyrants.wine. Promo code FSM. Help support the channel and the company. Would be really appreciated. And it's really good wine. And our newest sponsor, MyArkit. Save your digital legacy for generations. Don't just save your pictures where they are at risk of being censored, deleted, or lost. MyArkit gives you security and privacy at a great price while telling the whole story in your own voice and writing. Unlike a cloud backup to just dump all of your random pictures, MyArkit has you upload one full memory at a time. A video or short picture or short video post with text and or audio captions create a timeline that makes going back through your memories an easy and pleasant experience for you and your loved ones. Sign up for a 30-day free trial and see what all the craze is about. No payment info necessary. This is an actual free trial. Go to myarkit.com. That's myarkit.com. And if you use promo code FSM, you'll get 10% off there as well. But do the free trial, check it out, see how you like it, and then when you inevitably end up paying for it because it's great, use that promo code. You can sign up for a personal account to save your life forever, or if you have an important event coming up, you can create an event account. This will let attendees add photos and videos for you and other admins to go through later and curate a beautiful digital album for your upcoming wedding, convention, graduation, or shower. Go to myarkit.com to learn more. Again, that's promo code FSM. But without further ado, joining the fight tonight, native Hoosier, veteran, software aficionado, and libertarian gubernatorial candidate in the great state of Indiana, Mr. Donald Rainwater. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, David, for making me sound a whole lot better than I am. And thank you for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure. I have been a big fan of you and your races since I watched you pretty closely in the 2020 race. And I've yet to actually have you on because I guess I kind of noticed you pretty late in that race, and then you weren't running for the last 3 years. And then
that's right. We were doing lots of other things, but after you run for governor at my age, you need to rest.
Amen to that.
Especially if you plan on doing it a second time. And this is our second run for governor here in the state of Indiana. And it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And as a libertarian, and as I'm sure as you know and have heard a lot of other folks say, because we don't sell out to, special interest groups, fundraising is a lot harder as a libertarian than it is as a Republican or a Demopublican. And so it does make it a lot more important that you get out and you get around the state, you meet people and you talk to them and do the county fairs and the festivals and that takes a lot of time and effort.
Yeah. I mean, you're really taking like definitely the most difficult road possible between the two avenues. You can either have it easy as a Democrat or Republican, or you can have it easy as a libertarian because you're not really campaigning much. But you're doing an actual real campaign where you're out there doing all this stuff, but with all the hurdles of a libertarian. It's almost the worst of both worlds on that.
Well, I'm a firm believer in if you're going to run for office, you do it because you want to win.
Yeah.
I don't believe that we can affect real change on the sidelines. So I want to push the other candidates for the office that I'm running for to change their ways. If I can win and we can get in and affect change, that's awesome. But if not, we want to make sure that we get our message out of what I call practical libertarianism as much as we possibly can, because I believe that today we're seeing more and more people waking up to what's wrong with government, and they see the libertarian message as the common sense message for how government needs to change.
Yeah. It's been very refreshing to see since I joined kind of in the Gary Johnson wing of the second time around in 2016. It's become, I don't know if maybe I've just gotten more into an echo chamber of people that agree with me or if society's actually changing, but it seems subjectively to me like the things that I would have even considered crazy to say out loud when I was voting for Gary Johnson, like abolish the FBI, are now things that are just getting said out there. And it's completely, everybody doesn't just turn their head if you say that in a bar and go, oh my God, you're a crazy person. Half the room goes, yeah, they were fucking with my candidate or something. And it's very, it's strange, but it's kind of encouraging for sure.
Well, and I think people are realizing that, government has just gotten too big and there's too much of it. And I think especially in an economy, in a post-pandemic economy, like what we are experiencing, I think people have started to realize that their money is being taken from them and given to people who don't need it. And I don't mean entitlements. I mean people who make a whole lot more money than we do.
Right.
And to me, those are the people who don't need my money. Right. And I believe from a libertarian standpoint, we all understand the value of voluntarily wanting to help others if we can.
Yeah.
I don't want to help someone who has 3 times the resources or more that I have, because I'm not helping them, I'm hurting me.
Right.
And government at every level is actively on a daily basis taking from those who do not have and giving to those who have way too much already. And here again, I don't begrudge anybody who starts a business, builds a business, has a successful business. I begrudge the government that goes to those people and says, here, we can create a little uneven opportunity for you. We can put our hands on the scale and create a monopolistic situation for you. All you got to do is donate to our campaign. And I think there's way too much of that. I know there is in Indiana.
Oh, yeah. So I always like to start off with a fairly similar question. So I'm curious, if we go all the way back to the beginning of your libertarian testimony, what convinced you to join this crazy group of people?
Well, that's a great question. And I always tell folks that, I grew up, my father was a employee of Ford Motor Company for 41 years, worked at the steering plant here in Indianapolis. So he was a UAW member. He was a union member. Yeah. So I got a steady diet of the, what I call the old Democrat philosophies, the blue collar working man, union Democrat perspective. Mm-hmm. And we went to church every day, every time the doors open. We were at church. So I got, growing up in the late 60s and 70s, I got a steady diet of what I call the religious right perspective. So I got both of those. And growing up pre Federal Department of Education, they were still allowing us to learn how to think critically when I went to school.
Crazy.
So growing up as a critical thinker, I was able to take the good parts of both sides of that equation and kind of ignore the bad parts. And as I grew up and realized that in the state of Indiana, the Republican Party has a supermajority in our legislature. Almost every statewide office is held by a Republican. And things weren't going the way that I thought they should. So I decided to get involved. And knowing that I didn't agree with the way the Republicans did things or the Democrats did things, I started researching. And I found that the Libertarian Party was the party that most closely mirrored my personal feelings about how to safeguard individual rights, minimize government, and so here I am. And I tell people all the time, not everything in the libertarian platform agrees with me. I don't always agree with it, but this is the closest I can come to feeling comfortable and confident that I'm representing something that I believe represents my perspective. And I think that that's extremely important, that we as libertarians understand that as we grow our party, we need to realize that when people come to the party, they're not going to be 100% libertarian. And we have to welcome them and help them grow in that understanding.
Amen to that. I feel like way too many people, and honestly, this isn't something that's just something that we do. I watch it a lot on the like progressive left, like Democratic circles as well, where once you learn a thing and you realize how stupid you were prior to learning that thing, and change your ideology, most people almost instantaneously forget the train of thought that had led them to the previous thought that they had just unlearned, and can't fathom how anyone could think that, because, well, I know this new thing now, which may be factually correct, but we lose all empathy for the people who thought the way we did 6 months ago, or even 2 days ago sometimes. And we need to be a lot better at that, because when I cast a vote for Gary Johnson, I was still kind of war hawkish like best defense is a good offense, fight them over there so we don't have to fight them over here type. I was a pretty close to a closed borders, like not quite build the wall because financial stupidity there, but pretty aligned with Trump's platform on the border. And it was really guns and drugs that brought me to the LP. It was the only party that had both of those. And it was before I ever smoked, but I just knew that was wrong to put people in jail for a plant. And Gary was the only one that had guns and drugs on the same platform. So, and then years of being around libertarians, now I'm a full-blown anarchist and, an abolish almost everything type libertarian. So obviously I've moved, but I completely understand the people who still fall for it when they start scaring us like, if Russia beats Ukraine, we're the next target. I would have fallen for that 8 years ago.
Understood.
So what are some of the key issues that you guys are messaging on in this campaign cycle?
Well, so in Indiana, and you talk about when I ran 4 years ago. And I think it's interesting that when I said I was going to run again, a lot of folks approached me and said, well, it's not going to be as easy as it was 4 years ago because you don't have your niche issue. And I said, well, what is that niche issue that you think I had 4 years ago that I don't have now? And they would say, well, masks and vaccines. And I said, now, see, I look at it differently. I feel like masks and vaccines 4 years ago was a symptom of the issue. In Indiana today, we have property taxes because our assessments are going through the roof. And the assessments go up, the taxes go up because it's 1%, 1% of the assessed value of the property. So it sounds like, oh, that's pretty fair. But, when you got an arbitrary individual who looks at your property and says, well, I think it's worth this. That guesstimate, and I'm not real fond of that. But that's still a symptom of the real problem. And the real issue is too much government. And I think as libertarians, it's incumbent upon us when we run for office. It doesn't matter what the hot button symptoms are. The underlying issue, the underlying illness is always too much government. And if the symptom is property taxes, and you talk about the fact that, well, you can't own your property if you have to pay the government twice a year in order to keep it or to keep them from taking it. That's an issue people are currently in Indiana very concerned about.
Yeah.
A lot of folks don't realize that property taxes affect renters as much, if not in Indiana more, than it does homeowners because investment property is 2% of the assessed value. And we all know that when a landlord gets charged property taxes, they build the cost of that into the rent.
Of course.
So you're looking at, people are seeing their rent or their mortgage go up $100, $200, $300, $400 a year per month.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of money per month to have it's a lot of White Castles, man. And this is something that folks are really frustrated with. Get the price of gasoline. Here in Indiana, we have two separate taxes that the state of Indiana imposes on a gallon of gas. 7% sales tax, and a currently 35-cent per gallon excise tax. Now, I believe that whenever you're paying two separate imposed taxes to the same government for the same product, that's too much government.
Yeah.
So
there's a reason I stop for gas in Ohio before I cross over the Indiana border every time I come to your state.
Yeah.
It's usually a solid 30, 40 cent
higher
difference.
here than
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Our gasoline price is normally 5 cents a gallon higher than the national average. Yet they want to brag about the fact that we have low taxes in Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
And
the
my
Democrats.
philosophy.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
One of the things that annoys me the most about politics currently, and it's glaringly obvious every time there's a presidential cycle, is how much the opposing party will pretend to be insulting their opponents, but actually make them sound better than they are. So a lot of times, it's not the Republicans that I hear bragging about how good the taxes are in Indiana. It's the Democrats complaining about how, oh, there's not enough taxes, the wealthy aren't get it. And they make it seem like Indiana is this just bastion of freedom and free market and wonderfulness because everything's unregulated and untaxed and it's awful. And it's like, I wish the Republicans were the way that Democrats call them and vice versa. We would actually have a more libertarian country.
Well, I am frequently saying that with Republicans like we have in Indiana, you don't need Democrats.
Right.
Which is why Democrats in Indiana have such a difficult time. I mean, Democrats almost have as much trouble as libertarians do getting elected in Indiana.
Right.
If it were, in my opinion, if it weren't for Republicans gerrymandering Lake County up by Chicago, and Marion County here in the state capital, I don't know that Democrats would hold any major federal, there are no congressional offices, because really the Republicans gerrymander them to congressional seats, and that's about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds about like how New York is just reversed. We've got,
and the reality is the worst monopoly you can possibly have is politics.
Oh yeah, monopoly on thought is dangerous. Thought and ideas and solutions, and we've put so much of the world's problems into the hands of government, which, obviously as an anarchist is silly, but I can understand the logic behind it. These are our elected leaders who are supposed to be serving us. If anyone can solve this problem, it should be them, the best of us, the people we choose to solve our problems. I can kind of get
created the problem in the first place.
Right. At this point, that's more the case. And it's, if you have, like you're saying, if you have a monopoly on politics, like you guys have in Indiana and we have here in New York, we have a supermajority in House and Senate, and Democrats can just run away with anything they want in the state. Then it's really a monopoly on everything, because it's a monopoly on business, it's a monopoly on travel, it's a monopoly on everything. And
because whatever they want to do, they do.
Yeah,
and nobody stops them.
Yeah, you end up with a state like California where there's border patrol, but on the state border, not the federal border. They're stopping people coming in from Oregon for whatever reason.
Well, who knows? Now, I was stationed in San Diego for about a year, back in the mid 80s. Most beautiful place I have been in the United States. The weather is almost perfect, but I don't think you can make enough money to live in California comfortably. I don't know. I mean, they've destroyed the cost of living is just ridiculous.
Yeah, it is a beautiful state. My dad was also stationed in San Diego, probably only a few years later. I think it would have been towards the end of the 80s. But and talks about it often. And I've done a couple of campaigns and other political work in the state, and it's great to visit, but very few times have I ever even entertained the thought of living there, and they were very short thoughts.
Yes.
It's great to grab an Airbnb for a little while. That's about it.
Yeah, all you have to do is look at housing cost, and you say, nope, no thanks.
Yeah, luckily I have a couple friends down there that I can normally get a free place to stay if I'm only there for a week or two, and that's about the only thing that makes California doable. So speaking of California, this is an easy pivot. Indiana is an island of prohibition now as far as cannabis goes, since Ohio legalized recreational in 22.
Right.
How are the voters that you're talking to reacting to your campaign on this issue? And do you see Indiana flipping soon, or are they just going to hold out until it's legalized federally?
So here's what I find interesting. And I think we need to push the federal government to get it off the schedule of controlled substances.
Mm-hmm.
That definitely needs to happen. But I will tell you that at the beginning of this campaign, my Republican opponent had no interest in cannabis legalization or decriminalization whatsoever. And my Democrat opponent was talking about medical, yes, recreational, probably not.
Okay.
And by the time we got to our first debate together on October 3rd, the Republican candidate has now said, definitely consider medical cannabis. And the Democrat has said, oh, we definitely have to do medical cannabis with a pathway to recreational.
Nice.
So our existence in the campaign and our active campaigning on the issue of decriminalization and legalization has made a difference. And one of the things that I think that I have been able to help affect that difference is the fact that I have made the point that in the state of Indiana, we have legal tobacco, we have legal alcohol, we have legal pharmaceuticals. Somebody please give me a logical reason those things are legal and cannabis is not.
Right.
And I have yet to have anybody make an attempt at giving me a logical, rational reason.
Yeah.
You get the, well, we'll have potheads running around everywhere driving cars. That's not a logical, rational reason. We have drunk driving laws and we have legal alcohol.
Yeah.
We have driving under the influence and we have legal pharmaceuticals. There's just no reason for prohibition. And we know based on 100 years ago what prohibition of alcohol caused. And when people in Indiana say we have a problem with violent crime, well, prohibition increases violent crime. That's just a fact. Ask Al Capone, he'll tell you.
Right.
So I think that we've been able to, and here again, I think it's important, not just because I'm on the ballot, but because I'm actively campaigning to win, and I'm talking to people about the fact that I'm not. The reason for decriminalization and legalization isn't look at all the tax revenue.
Right.
That is not a reason. That may be a benefit, a collateral benefit, but it's not a reason. The reason to do it is because prohibition is an infringement on our individual rights.
Amen.
Government should only be protecting me from your infringement on my rights and you from my infringement on your rights, and both of us from the government's infringement on our rights. I don't need a nanny or a mommy or a daddy to tell me, that's bad for you.
Right.
If you can't tell, I eat enough food, I know what's bad for me.
Yeah.
I
have a mom that tells me almost every time she sees me do it how bad this is for me. I don't need the government to double up on it.
That's right. Exactly. And the reality is it's not government's place to tell us what we should or shouldn't do. It's government's place to make sure that we don't infringe on each other's rights. I every once in a while, I'll have a discussion with somebody. I'll say, look, according to the founding fathers, you are supposed to have the right to run out in the street and play in the street. And if a car hits you, you are liable for any damage to that car because you chose to go out in the street and play in the street.
Right.
The government should not say it's against the law to play in the street. If you don't have enough common sense to stay out of the street, it's on you. That's personal responsibility. Now, of course, I say that tongue in cheek, and I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it's the idea that, government is not there to protect us from ourselves. And the lame excuse that if I do something that's bad for my health, it causes everybody's health insurance costs to go up, just doesn't hold water. And we know that.
No.
You know full well. It's just like the seatbelt law. I'm going to go on a tangent for just a second, Dave. I'm sorry. But in Indiana, we have a seatbelt law. You got to wear a seatbelt. Why? It's not public safety. Nope. They don't care about my well-being, because if they did, we'd have seatbelts on school buses, but we don't.
Right.
The reason we have a seatbelt law is because an actuary at an insurance company determined that insurance companies save a lot of money paying out claims if people wear seatbelts.
Yep.
So if we have a seatbelt law that makes everybody wear a seatbelt, the insurance companies save money, which means they make more money. Well, the reality is if we were in a free market, insurance companies would say, here, I've got an insurance policy that if you agree to wear your seatbelt, you'll pay this amount.
Yep.
But if you have this policy and you're in an accident and it's determined you weren't wearing your seatbelt, you're not covered. Or you can pay this extra money and be covered whether you're in a seatbelt or not.
Right.
That's free market insurance.
Yeah. And now they
but
have
we
like
don't do that.
The
Go
little
ahead.
plug-in. Sorry. Now they have like that little plug-in. I think it's Progressive that does it. That like tracks how good your driving is and gives you a discount if you're a good driver. They could they could just have those in every car that's insured under them. That could just be kind of an across the board thing. Most people would surrender that level of privacy to an insurance company to know what's going on in their car at any given time, if it might make their policy cheaper. And that thing would easily be able to read how often you're moving above, say, like 10 miles an hour without a seatbelt on.
Right.
And they could even set a different...
Being a software engineer, I can tell you that the technology is available to do that.
Right.
And it's really not... And here again, we have to remember that's not an infringement on your privacy because it's a agreed upon transaction that you're executing with your insurance company.
Yeah.
Now, if they were to make that information available to the government, now it's an invasion of privacy. It's, in my opinion, it would be a Fourth Amendment violation.
Yep.
But if it's just me and my insurance company, and they say, you know, it's just like health insurance. There should be policies that cover pre-existing conditions, and you pay X. Policies that don't, and you pay a little less.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that, but government saying, oh no, everybody's got to cover everything. I don't need a pregnancy clause in my policy. I may look pregnant, but I'm not. But see, these are things that we don't think about because we've been conditioned to believe that things are supposed to be the way they are.
Yeah.
And there are people out here a lot smarter and a lot more clever than I am who are waiting to enter the marketplace with innovative solutions in healthcare and insurance and all other industries within the free market. If we just had a free market.
Yeah.
But we don't. Government and its heavy hand is constantly throwing up barriers to entry because the people who have already succeeded in the market are donating to campaigns and making sure that laws are put into place so that the competition stays out.
Right.
And we've got to put a stop to that.
Yeah. I'm going to go down a little bit further on your tangent just to kind of make an example, because seatbelt laws are something that I'm weirdly passionate about. I like vehemently hate them. So picking that as your example is great. Because the other thing that really makes a difference when you start opening up the enforcement or incentivization, or however you want to call that, to a private company is that a mistake gets to be corrected a lot quicker than it does from a government. If they, all of these insurance companies go through all the thing to make it to where you get, it's $50 a month extra if you're driving without a seatbelt on at any point in time through the month. And then maybe it takes a year or two of the data and everything. They realize they were being crazy about it. And it's really only that dangerous if you're going above 12 miles an hour without a seatbelt on. And anything less than that is mostly safe, right? I don't know where that number is, but the arbitrary line is not at 0. It's somewhere above that. And they can move the line. And that's just a boardroom decision, not a state house vote that has to be a bill that's argued about and all of this other shit. It's just a boardroom says, all right, let's move it from 7 to 12. That seems fine. Boom, problem solved, lives made better. And you don't have to wait years and years and maybe campaign on it. And they wait a whole election cycle because, you have to elect us because we're going to raise that number. And, you have to elect us because they're going to make it really dangerous on the roads. And it's just so much simpler and easier when you have a private company doing it. And I think that it's not a coincidence that the only state without seatbelt laws is also the only state without mandatory insurance laws.
There you go.
New Hampshire.
And see, that's the other thing, right? Why do I have to have insurance? Oh, to protect you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, don't you have a policy that covers uninsured motorists? I mean, I pay for uninsured motorist coverage.
Yeah.
So if I'm paying for uninsured motorist coverage, why can't there be uninsured motorists?
Yep. And the crazy thing is most states' uninsured motorist coverage is mandatory.
Yes.
If you have insurance, you have to have insurance that will cover people that don't.
Right.
What?
What a racket, right? Pretty good business if you can get it.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the few insurances I haven't sold is auto. I've done life, accident, health, a lot of the other stuff, but never touched the auto insurance industry. Mostly because I vehemently disagree with it just as a concept. I don't think I could sell that. Life insurance is a choice. You don't go to jail if you don't have life insurance.
Right.
So it's a completely different sales technique. I couldn't be one of those people that is my paycheck exists because people go to jail if they don't give me my paycheck. That sucks. I don't want to do that.
And here again, you know, I tell people all the time, homeowners insurance, that's not required. It's required by your mortgage company. But here again, you entered into a transactional agreement with another entity. And you said, you give me this loan to buy this house, and I'll make sure that I keep insurance on it while I'm paying off this loan.
Yeah.
Cars can be the same way. And here again, if we're going to sell uninsured motorist insurance, then that assumes there are uninsured motorists. Why do we have a law that says you have to have it? It just all seems very disingenuous.
Yeah.
It's funny, but it's not.
And most laws, especially the ones that we typically argue against, are sold out of this but what if kind of mentality, which is why I think nanny state a lot of times really is some of the best fitting terminology, because the government acts like a neurotic helicopter mom that just thinks of like the worst case scenario possible for everything. But obviously, like, I am an anarchist, so I have fairly extreme views on things. But in a like minarchist or libertarian society or something like that, you can we can make it to where you still go to jail if you hit somebody's car, like the accident is your fault, you don't have insurance, and you can't cover the repairs of that other person's car, you go to jail. That seems fair. We don't need to send everyone without insurance to jail. We just need to send the ones who cause accidents without the ability to pay.
And I would argue that sending somebody to jail might be a little extreme, but we can most definitely say, okay, you're responsible for paying for that. We don't care how long it takes you.
Yeah.
You're going to pay restitution for the damage that you've done. And here again, I think that's, one of the things that folks kind of forget is that libertarians don't. The term anarchist doesn't mean chaos.
Right.
It means we don't need a government dictating all of these things. We can still have I love the term arbitration. Right? The one thing that I think, whether you call it a court system or what you label it, the one thing that when human beings are involved, you always need is that ability to arbitrate when someone infringes on somebody else's rights. And in the, as your example of a car accident, if I cannot pay to have your vehicle repaired in the event that I cause damage to your vehicle, then I need to be able to make restitution. I am personally responsible. Now, one of the things in Indiana that is kind of messy is the idea that if you cause damage to if you run a red light and hit my car and I don't have insurance, I get in trouble.
Yeah.
But I didn't do anything wrong other than not having insurance. And those, to me, those are the litmus tests for, is a law a good law or not? Because is there a victim? If there's a victim, I've committed a crime. I should be held responsible for my crime.
Yeah.
If I am the victim, I did not commit a crime. I should not be held accountable for what I call, you talk about the Manning state. What I've told people is we have relegated ourselves to the place where we allow our government to play Simon Says and Mother May I with us as adults. Would you have to go get a permit to fix your fence in your backyard? That's Mother May I with the government. And when you have to file taxes every year, that's Simon Says, file your taxes.
Yeah.
And I quit playing kids games when I was no longer a kid. Well, okay.
Yeah. I was going to say, are you sure?
Video games as an adult, so maybe not. But everybody gets the point, right? The idea is government has no standing to make us ask permission or to demand that we do things.
Yeah.
That is not government's role. I'm pretty sure Jefferson laid it out, the Declaration of Independence, and it didn't include Simon Says and Mother May I. As a matter of fact, when he delineated all of the grievances against the crown, against the king, there was a lot of, the king plays Simon Says and Mother May I with us, and we don't like it.
Right. Simon Says is a great example for taxes too, because it requires this ridiculous amount of paying attention and like analyzing their rules, and you have to decipher their own rules and respond, and then they'll just be like, nope, you did it wrong. It's very accurate, because a lot of times it's just pay your taxes, and oh nope, Simon didn't say that one, and you didn't pay enough, or you paid too much, or you included last year's something, or you forgot to include last year's something, which apparently is a thing you have to do sometimes now. God, I hate taxes.
Well, take another thing that I think, since we're talking about insurance, health insurance. The government says, Simon Says, if you work for somebody who provides health insurance coverage, you have to take it from them or you're out of luck.
Right.
And oh, by the way, Simon also says that you have from December 15th to January 15th to sign up. Other than that, you're out of luck.
Yep.
And you can say Mother May I, but we'll say no. and these are, there's no way, it's a free market system. When the government says, if you can get this, you have to take it. And oh, by the way, you have to sign up for it between this time and this. That's not free market.
Yeah.
That's not the market determining. That's socialism.
Right. The open enrollment is one of the wildest things that I've ever encountered in just my adult life, and especially my professional life. Because like I mentioned earlier, I did for a time sell life accident and health insurance. And I was, as a kid, thought it would be weird to grow up and be a teacher and have a job that's only some parts of the year. I was a salesman that couldn't actually close the deal except for 1 month of the year.
Yeah.
And I had to pitch them something else that they really didn't need to get them as a client, get a commission, and have an excuse to go back there in late December, early January, and close the deal on the other stuff. It was so weird. And I did not last long in that industry. And that was definitely one of the major reasons why, because it was just such an insane situation to be in, where the main thing I wanted to sell them, the thing that had the best, some of the best commission and some of the highest incentive to sell, because, health insurance is kind of important. If you're not just like a healthy 20-something, you should probably have it. And yeah, but I'm not allowed to sell it in June.
Right. Well, and
it's so important that you legally have to have it, but you can't buy it in June.
Yeah, here's the thing that I when you start talking to people about health insurance and you let them know that if they calculate their monthly premium and multiply that times 12, and then add the deductible to it, and then ask them, okay, take that amount of money. When was the last time you spent that amount of money at the doctor?
Right.
And they go, oh, I've never spent that much going to the doctor. Then why are you buying health insurance?
Right.
Why aren't you putting that money in a savings account or some other interest-bearing account? Get some interest on that money, and then if you have to go to the doctor, take the money out of there. Oh, you mean like a health savings account? No, because that's managed by the government, and there's all that Mother May I and Simon Says that goes on with those.
Right.
And see, that's another problem with all of this. Flexible spending accounts, health savings accounts, all these things that are government regulated and government mandated. Why can't I just put my freaking money in a savings account and pull it out when I need it and spend it where I need it, and the government get their freaking hands and eyes off of it?
Yeah.
Why but this is the way that back when I was in the Navy, two of the phrases that I learned to hate. We've always done it that way. And, well, I guess this is the best way to do it. That's how I was taught. I hate that one too.
Yep.
Well, this is the way I was shown how to do it. It must be the right way.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, folks. God gave us this for a reason.
Yeah.
And all we have to do is use it. And we don't need government to do it for us. And here again, if we make bad decisions, and I think we've all made bad decisions in our life, I still haven't met anybody who could tell me, no, every decision I've ever made was the right one. If you're out there, give me a call.
Yeah, definitely can't claim that one.
But the reality is I don't need government to think for me. I can be responsible for my own consequences.
Mm-hmm.
I may regret many of my consequences, but they're mine.
Yeah.
And I think that, just like James Madison talked about, there's property in your thought.
Yeah.
I think there's property in your mistakes.
Yeah.
Those are my mistakes. The government needs to keep their hands off of them.
Amen to that. That's something that I've been struggling a lot as a parent with, because I do have all of these ideals, but then there's the objective reality of I'm not a government, I'm a parent. This is my actual job, to be the nanny, right? I do have to stop them from making some mistakes, but you can't stop them from making all of their mistakes.
Right.
So it's often a point of and a lot of times I only have a split second to make the decision. It's, my son is walking along like a fence line or something like that and probably about to fall. Do you run and catch him? Or do you analyze that he'll be fine? It's a 2-foot fall and maybe he'll scrape his knee up a little bit on the sidewalk and learn to be more careful. And you only really have a half a second to make that choice. And it's a tough one a lot of times,
Well, and that's a great analogy that I think illustrates how we kind of determine whether government should be involved in something or not.
Mm-hmm.
Because as a parent, you don't punish a child for putting themselves in a position where they might get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you might strongly encourage them to get off of there. Don't touch that stove. But a child putting their hand, starting to reach up, you're thinking about doing something that you could get hurt. Mm-hmm. We're going to have to tie your hands behind your back so you can't do that. Can you imagine a parent doing that to a child? I'm going to tie your hands behind your back so you can't reach up and grab the stove. That's government.
Yeah.
If you touch the stove after we make sure that your hand's okay, I'm probably going to discipline you for doing that so you don't do it again.
Right.
There are consequences to your mistake.
Mm-hmm.
If you get mad and bust out the glass in the screen door, there's going to be consequences to that mistake.
Yeah.
But the government, where government goes wrong, is government wants to punish us not for doing something wrong, but for putting ourselves in a position where something could happen.
Right.
Back to the seatbelt law,
mm-hmm.
Right? Am I hurting anybody not wearing a seatbelt? Not at all. But if I'm pulled over and I don't have a seatbelt on, I'm going to get punished.
Right. And that's one thing I think my parents did a very good job of when they were raising me. My mom vocalized it a lot more than my dad. Was God already punished you? I don't have to.
I like that. That's interesting.
Because there were a lot of instances where, I did something stupid, got hurt. There's no real need to punish me. I felt the bleeding arm hurts more than the spanking. Anyway,
absolutely.
One of her favorite stories to tell, and I just shaved clean face for the first time in 2 years and can tell that the scar is still there. When I was I think it would have been 3rd or 4th grade, somewhere in there, I was grounded, but we were at church for the Wednesday night program. And so after the program was over, since I was grounded, I had to go into my mom's classroom because she was one of the teachers and just hang out in there instead of, running around playing tag and dodgeball and whatever with the rest of the kids after class. But my mom had to go to the church office to make some copies or do something and was out of the room for 10-15 minutes. So me, as a typical 3rd grade troublemaker, I dipped and went and played with my friends for that time because I knew she would probably be a while. She's my mom. She's probably going to get caught by someone and start talking. I probably have a minute. And I was fairly right. I went and played and I could hear her coming back from the office. So I bolted down the hallway for her classroom, tripped and fell face first into the metal strip that goes along the doorway. And nice big cut across my chin. Blood starts gushing everywhere. And I didn't get in trouble for leaving the room while I was grounded, which I would have normally, because I'm bleeding, I'm crying. There's nothing that
Punishment
her yelling
enough.
at me. Yeah, her yelling at me was not going to do any good. And I honestly, her not punishing me there, I sent a much clearer message of like karma. And like if you do play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Something my dad used to say a lot, and like that was definitely a great example of it. But yeah, to your point, with the seatbelt laws, government, like I've gotten a ticket for not having a seatbelt on when I got into an accident. Like I didn't have a seatbelt on, got injured in a car accident, and still got a ticket for not having the seatbelt on. So not only did I have the trip to the hospital, I also had a ticket to pay.
Yeah.
And like, what do you do? Who are you helping here? To be like, oh, should have had a seatbelt on, wouldn't have gotten hurt as bad. Like, okay. I'm okay with the cop being an asshole and telling me that verbally. I'm not okay with him giving me a ticket for it.
Right. Yeah, these are all things that, and a lot of people are like, well, why wouldn't you wear a seatbelt? Well, I do, but that's not the point.
Mm-hmm.
The point is, government doesn't have the standing. Now, we let them get away with it. And, I've often said, anybody has the right to do anything to me that I let them do.
Fair enough.
If I'm going to let you, if you walk up to me and say, I am going to smack you silly, and then you hit me across the face, and I stand there, it's not your fault I got hit. It's mine. I'll tell you a quick story and kind of what goes along with that. About 13 years ago, I was crossing the street on my way. I parked my car in the parking lot, had to cross my street or the street to get to the building I worked in. And I was hit by a nurse turning left to get on the interstate. And I was in the crosswalk and I had the right of way. She was getting off a 12-hour night shift, didn't see me. Now I'm 6'3". I'm wearing a big black. It's bright out. It's morning.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wearing a big black leather long coat, a black leather hat, and she couldn't miss me. There's no way but she did. She didn't see me, turned right into me, hit me, and knocked me down, and I had to go to the hospital, and but people would ask me, about that, and I'd say, well, it was my own fault. What do you mean? Well, every decision that I made from the time I got up in the morning until I got where she hit me led me to that spot.
Right.
Nobody else told me what time to get up, what time to leave the house, what route to take, where to park my car. I made all those decisions on my own. Mm-hmm. And I put myself in the spot she was turning when she was turning. Now, was she wrong for hitting me? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I bear a certain amount of personal responsibility for putting myself, now again, that's an extreme explanation of what I call, everything that we do involves our decision making, our choices. We make choices every day that put us in a position to have certain external things happen to us that if we had made different choices wouldn't have happened. And so I think it's kind of incumbent on us to realize that government is treating us the way government is treating us because we've let them do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because we, both individually and as a society, have said, well, I guess this is okay.
Yep. Yeah. And I think not to be like super Darwinistic and dark about it all, but there really is a kind of downward spiral of it where the more we nanny state everyone and make sure that people aren't allowed to make mistakes, the more generally stupid people are able to continue to reproduce, be successful, and live on their lives and continue to vote for a nanny state that they actually do require.
Well,
there's a larger and larger population, obviously not based on our ideals, but based on their mindset. They need a nanny state because they are the type of person, well, if heroin was legal, maybe I would go do it. There are those people out there, and that percentage is getting bigger and bigger the more we nanny state it.
And I think you make a good point, and I'm going to kind of turn it on its side just a hair.
Go for it.
Government, by nature, creates dependency.
Mm-hmm.
In order for government, because we know that every organism, every living thing is designed to self-perpetuate,
Mm-hmm.
right? I want to protect myself. I want to continue to go on. I want to continue to exist. Government is the same way. Government wants to continue to exist. It wants to go on. It wants to, I like to compare it to the movie The Blob with Steve McQueen. If you've ever seen that movie, government is like the blob. It consumes human beings, and the more human beings it consumes, the bigger it gets. And the bigger it gets, the more human beings it needs to consume to continue to survive. And so government creates dependency by dumbing us all down. That's why we have public education.
Yep.
In order to need more government.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The reality is that we live in a society today where most people believe government is their friend.
Yeah.
Holy crap. And why? Because that's what they were taught in public schools.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what their parents were taught. And we've it only takes a few generations, and then when we call something socialism, everybody looks at us like we're crazy because the socialists have taught us that that's not socialism. That's just good government.
Right.
That's caring about other people. No, voluntarism is caring about other people. Collectivism is socialism.
Yeah.
But here again, we're looked at as being odd because
they're not wrong on that, but
but we're on a good way. We understand that we've been, I love the meme that says, when you watch Star Wars, you sided with the resistance. When you watched The Matrix, you sided with the resistance. When you watched V for Vendetta, you sided with the resistance. And in real life, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Why don't you get it? Government is not our friend. Government is a self-perpetuating blob.
Yeah.
And the bigger it gets, the more of us it consumes.
Yeah. I think we, as a movement, need to do more to kind of associate ourselves in the public eye with some of those fictional kind of resistance movements, because it really is, especially my generation specifically, grew up on almost exclusively a band of rebellious kids beat out the evil old guy, across the board.
Yeah.
And somehow for the most part, the Democrats have been able to maintain a monopoly on that's them. Even with Biden being their candidate in 2020, they were able to
And he
somehow
kind of
still
looks like the emperor, doesn't he?
right. He's got the same amount of wrinkles. And I mean, now we have RFK running, who kind of sounds like him, and but
Well, he's not running anymore.
yeah, fair. But it's very, I don't know, disheartening to me to see how many people, because I've seen the posts and things from some of my normie friends and just like other people on the internet of, a fairly similar meme of, you made us read, Harry Potter and Percy Jackson and Lord of the Rings growing up, and then you're surprised that we're fighting the old rich asshole.
Yeah.
Which is a very valid take. And in reality, neither the Democrats nor the Republicans are the resistance in the second trilogy of Star Wars. They are just two different sides of the Imperial Senate.
That's right.
That's all they are. They are the people who are perpetuating it, and we are the actual resistance. Or an even better analogy is in the first three. Republicans are the empire, or the republic, and the Democrats are the separatists, and they're both controlled by the Sith.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think, I don't know, I just kind of a random tangent, but we could do a lot more to help people kind of wake up to that exact point of everything piece of media you've ever consumed told you, for the most part, don't trust the government. It's going to get more tyrannical and evil, and yet you still trust the government.
Well, and one of the things that I and I'll be honest, I take a lot of flack from a lot of our libertarian friends, because I kind of have labeled myself an incrementalist. And what I tell people is it took us as a society 240 years to get to this place. We're not going to turn this around overnight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would be dangerous.
We need to win people over, and that's the other thing I think that frustrates me as a candidate is that I have a lot of libertarian friends who will tell me, no, you need to be more bold with your messaging and call out this and call out that. And no, I want to get votes. I want to subtly teach people. They subtly taught us the wrong thing. We have to subtly teach people the right thing. We have to take our time and show people, let them discover for themselves. You were talking about that earlier. I wake up and now all of a sudden I have no empathy for anybody else who needs to come to the light of day.
Yeah.
And that is something that we as candidates, as libertarian candidates, I feel like we really need to work on, is this idea that I want to win an election. To do that, in theory, you need 50% plus one. And if only 3 to 5% of the people in Indiana identify as libertarian, I can't just campaign to the libertarians.
Right.
You got to campaign to everybody. And I've got to make libertarian concepts and principles make sense within the campaign for today. Talking about property taxes and the fact that you can't truly own your property if you have to pay property taxes twice a year, with the threat hanging over your head that if you get behind, they'll take it from you.
Right.
These are things that you've got to you gotta influence. The word sorry, it's late in the day. Persuasion.
Yeah.
Right. It's better to persuade than to coerce. That's one of the whole processes and principles of libertarianism.
Yeah.
Yet we want to coerce people into listening to what we have to say, and we call them stupid if they don't get it the first time.
Yep.
And we've kind of got to get to the idea that if we want people to embrace persuasion, we need to be persuasive.
Yeah. I have a personal business rule that I won't work on a high end position like campaign manager, comms director, something like that, for a candidate that has never read How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a rule. If you haven't read that, or you can at least tell me what it's about and some of the points of it, because you already kind of knew it all and didn't need to read it. There's ways to learn it without that specific book, right? But if you can't give me the general gist of that book, I'm not going to work with you as a candidate, because you're not going to be a good one.
Yeah, you're going to more than likely either miss the message or deliver it in a very off-putting way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and I've often said that what I want people to do is realize they're libertarian 30 minutes after I'm done talking to them.
I like that.
I want it to kind of slide up on them and go, you know what? He made a lot of sense. You know what? That's that, because if I can plant the seed and then walk away and it grows on its own, the message is good enough to do that. I just have to let it happen.
Yeah. In my experience, a lot of my revelations, towards whether it's towards anarchy or kind of towards my religious beliefs currently, or towards really any of my belief systems that I currently hold, a lot of the big jumps happened when talking to someone who vehemently disagrees with those beliefs and kind of playing devil's advocate and arguing the belief that I now hold. And that's really when it sets in. So a lot of times, I would talk to, say, Larry Sharp during his 2018 campaign, and he would talk to me about, why, all taxes are stupid, or why we should privatize education, or something that I thought was a little bit wild and out there at the time. And then I'd go and talk to my sister, who's a liberty-leaning Democrat-ish. She voted like Jorgensen, but Democrat the rest of the ballot. And she'll start telling me how stupid some of those ideas are. And then I'm like, well, no, because this. And, I'll say some of the things that Larry said and then kind of get deeper into the argument. And then I'm like, as you get deeper into it, you start to realize, no, I'm right here. You're wrong. Larry was right. I was wrong. This is the correct position. But it's not that Larry convinced me. It's that I kind of convinced myself while arguing the points that he taught me to argue. And a lot of libertarians don't give somebody the opportunity to go talk to a dumb statist in between the conversations. Go talk to somebody who thinks the opposite. See if they can convince you of the opposite. And that's really what shows people a lot of times how bad the statist arguments are, because they really are. They mostly boil down to, what if someone gets hurt? And it's like, that's a pretty weak argument. And then you go back to your libertarian friend and you go, okay, tell me more. But we need the break there. You need the time to either think about it yourself or argue with somebody else about it, and really kind of dissect it. If I just bully you into being a libertarian, you're not going to be a real libertarian.
That's right.
It's kind of like I talk a lot about how it's like evangelicalism, where I can't save you, only God can. If I just bully you into saying the sinner's prayer, that doesn't get you into heaven. That doesn't do anything. That's just me. That might send me to hell, if anything. Just trying to do that kind of stuff to people. and I think evangelicals kind of have a one-up in libertarianism in that way, because they understand that you need to go sit with those seeds, let them grow a little bit, and then come back to me and keep asking questions. So for quite a few years, LP Indiana has been like a beacon of hope to the rest of us in the other 49 states of what a state affiliate can look like and accomplish. So tell me a little bit about like Evan McMahon, Kristen Alexander, Will Henry, Liz Cochleard, and some of the other just awesome people that you guys have out there, and why you guys are able to do the numbers and the membership and the fundraising that you guys do that just makes us all look bad.
Well, let me put it to you this way. When you have a Republican supermajority, or for example, you guys in New York, you've got a pretty good crop of people there too. But it's the idea that, you gotta be able and willing to get out and do the work. And I think we've got a good core group of people in Indiana who want to do the work. Now, I think there's two phases of the work. And I think one phase is running for office. The other phase is activism. Mm-hmm. And I think that we have a really solid foundation of activism in Indiana.
Yeah.
I think that we need, I think across the board, whether it be Indiana or any other state or at a national level, we need to understand the difference between activism and working to get people elected, because it really does take two different skill sets. Mm-hmm. I am not particularly the best activist.
Yeah.
Oh, you've noticed it too. But I'm decent at connecting with voters. Mm-hmm. But you need both to build a good, whether it's a county party or in Indiana, they have GOP clubs in towns and cities, right? So whether you're building a local club in your city or town, or a county affiliate, or a state affiliate, or a national party, you need to have your activist wing, and you need to have your political wing.
Yeah.
And they need to be separate but equal. Because here again, activism and getting people elected are really two different things.
Yeah.
And sometimes the smart thing to do as an activist is a dumb thing to do as a candidate.
Yes. And
a smart thing to do as a candidate is not effective for an activist. So there really is, and hopefully everybody watching this understands what I mean by the difference between being a candidate and being an activist, because I don't think that we really have a good solid foundation of doing both. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things that we've accomplished in Indiana is that we do have a really good, strong activist group, and we have some really, really good candidates.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we need to develop throughout the country.
I could not agree more. I think one of the biggest issues that we faced, to talk just inside baseball for a second, is that for a while now, those two things have been put up as a dichotomy instead of like yin and yang balance. And so you have the different caucus wars, and I don't just mean the current one, but most of the iterations of every caucus war for the last 2 decades have been the pragmatic, get people elected, build the infrastructure people, and the activist, good at messaging, radical side of things. And it's always kind of been framed as a dichotomy almost since the party's founding in the early 70s. And very few people run for party leadership on let's do both. And, you guys have been blessed with Evan McMahon for quite some time. And he's pretty strong on both and understands what it looks like to be a good activist, even though he is more of the other thing and really good at running party infrastructure and getting people elected. He can conceptualize both really well. And I think that helps. I would have loved to have seen him run for national chair, to be perfectly honest with you. And I know he won't, but
there's always tomorrow.
Right. But I think that I'm personally someone that thinks that if you want to be an activist, the best place to do that is outside of the party itself, for most of what you're doing, because a lot of times it's easier to do something over as a like 501c3 or C4 or PAC or something like that than as an actual political party. But we need to still communicate with each other and work together. And that's something that the movement as a whole has struggled with for quite some time. So we have at least 1,000 liberty organizations like National Association for Gun Rights or the 10th Amendment Center, or all of these different nonprofits out there that are doing things that most people in the LP have never heard of. That I find a new one at least once a week, just browsing Twitter and whatever, that I've gone a decade in the movement without ever hearing of them. And what we really need to be able to do is, as a national movement, do the both, like you're saying, like you guys do in Indiana, with all of these organizations that already have an established reputation as activists. Because, like you're saying, sometimes it's something that's dumb to do as a candidate is really smart to do as an activist. And if you're an activist for the party, a lot of times that ends up in a gray zone where it's still kind of dumb because you're doing it under the LP banner and you're hurting your candidates. But if you can do it as an activist under a different banner and then tell all of your people to go vote for this guy or work with a candidate or something, be able to work together, then you get the best of both worlds. And the other two parties do that so much, and we don't.
Well, see, now, and this is one thing as a matter of practical example. If you go to a Libertarian Party of Indiana booth, and it would obviously be a county party booth most of the time, you will see the world's smallest political quiz, and you'll be asked to take that quiz. And when you take the quiz, then they score it and they put your little dot on the board to show you where you fall, right? To me, that's activism, right? We're talking to you about libertarianism.
Yeah.
We're trying to help you see that you're already libertarian. You just don't know it yet. Now, to give you an alternative, when we did the Johnson County Fair here, because I live in Johnson County, it was close. So my campaign got a booth at the Johnson County Fair. And my booth was nothing but Rainwater. There was no libertarian, there was no world's smallest political quiz. I wasn't trying to convert anybody to libertarianism. I had one focus. I want you to meet me, like me, vote for me. I don't want you to think of yourself as a libertarian. I'm not trying to convert you. If you say that you're a Republican, I know better, but I'll let you say that. We're not going to argue about it. I tell people all the time, you could tattoo unicorn on my forehead. It doesn't make me one.
Yeah.
And I root for the Indianapolis Colts and the Indiana Pacers, but they don't pay me a check. I don't have a uniform. I don't get to stand on the sidelines, and I'm never going into the game.
Mm-hmm.
So I am not an Indiana Pacer. I am not an Indianapolis Colt. I'm a fan. I root for them. I want them to win. I spend money on their stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what an independent voter is. An independent voter says, I'm a Democrat. Well, do you pay dues to the Democrat Party? No. Do you go and vote at their private conventions? Are you a delegate? No. Okay, so you're an independent voter, but you normally vote Democrat. So you're a fan of the Democrats.
Right.
Well, yeah. Same with Republicans. So when I'm out campaigning to get elected, I don't want to convince you that you're not what you think you are. I just want you to, I want to convince you to use your vote to vote for me.
Yeah.
And then if I get into office, I can show you how libertarians govern, and you're going to go, that's what I wanted all along. I guess I am a libertarian. So to me, that's what makes Indiana, the LPIN, successful. Is I think we know that when I'm campaigning for office, I want your vote.
Yeah.
And I don't care what you call yourself. And I don't care who else you vote for.
Mm-hmm.
I just want your vote.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm working an LPIN booth at a county fair, I want you to vote for all our candidates.
Right.
I want you to take the political quiz and see where your dot falls and goes, I didn't know I was a libertarian. I guess I am a libertarian. But see, those are two, and like you said, those are two very different things. But I think those are things that we can do inside the party.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we need to know when to do the one and when to do the other.
Yeah, because it's a whole lot easier to, like, I'm sure all of those county fairs in 2021 were a lot easier to tell somebody, oh, you're a libertarian, because a chunk of them went, well, yeah, that makes sense. I voted Rainwater last year.
Yep.
It was the first time, but that conversation's going to be a million times easier to be like, oh, well, you voted Rainwater. Here's the candidate we're running for county, whatever. He's got almost the exact same platform. Show up to our county meeting next week. Like you're somebody who's already taken the plunge and voted for a third party, voted for somebody that may might not win, but you voted on your conscience. Especially if you're in a different state, none of our gubernatorial candidates have a shot of winning. We've got you and we've got Kalenich in West Virginia, and that's about it. I know I'm definitely, I like Spike's culture of winning and whatever. So I don't say that kind of stuff too often, but
I understand what you're saying.
But the rest of us don't quite have the situation you guys do. But yeah, if you've already taken that plunge and gone, my principles matter more than just being on the winning side, because that's how a lot of people vote. Those independent kind of swing voters is really just being fickle and sensing the way of the wind change correctly. And I think Obama's probably going to win, so I'm going to vote for Obama. It has nothing to do with his policy. I just don't want to be a loser. And and there's fans in sports, like you were talking, that are the exact same way. I'm gonna vote for whoever's the favorite in this game because I want to vote for the winner of the game or root for the winner. And those people kind of suck, but they exist. Man, but yeah, just getting fans of the LP. We could use some more of those.
That's
Some
right.
people who aren't as personally invested in this, who aren't showing up to the weekly or monthly meetings or whatever, and who just buy swag and pay dues and vote for us and tell their friends to do so also, and are just kind of fans. If
Yeah.
we need more of those too, as well as
That's right.
activists and politicians too.
Well, and because eventually they will become
Mhm.
activists.
Almost always.
What was what was it that the Borg used to say? You will be assimilated.
Yep. And that happens quite quickly, man. I went from a nobody to a county chair in a single meeting. So
There you go.
with like a brand new county contact, not chair, because
Right.
I was forming a new county. But so before I let you go, tell people how to find out more about your campaign, more about LPIN, what kind of volunteers you're looking for, how people can help out.
Sure. So, well, of course, the LPIN is lpin.org. You can go there and find out all about the Libertarian Party of Indiana. If you want to know more about my campaign, you can go to rainwaterforindiana.com. And, of course, we are still doing phone banking. And if you would like to volunteer to phone bank, you can go to rainwaterforindiana.com, go to the contact page, fill out the form there to volunteer. Kristen Alexander will get a hold of you, her or Stephanie Dosbach. Many of you may know the Dosbach name.
Mm-hmm.
They will get a hold of you and we'll get you a list of registered voters and a script, and you can call them and say, hey, have you heard of Donald Rainwater? And the reality is that name recognition is very important in getting people elected. And we definitely can use everybody's support. Which means I'm going to tell you that if you go to rainwaterforindiana.com, there are 2 donate buttons. There's one for credit and debit, and there's one for PayPal. And if you would prefer to write a check, you can make it out to Rainwater for Indiana and send it to P.O. Box 451, Nineveh, Nineveh, Indiana 46164. And I would appreciate any and all donations. The more money you send, the more we'll spend on name recognition. We've got a text campaign right now where we're texting Indiana voters, and we get about 80,000 texts for about $5,000. So the more $5,000 checks we get, the more voters we can reach. And I want to reach everybody I can before November 5th.
Amen to that. Guys, you heard him. Go check out the links in the description and go on over and donate. Don, thanks for coming on. This is absolutely fantastic.
Oh, David, thank you for having me, man. And I'm sorry, I know you probably don't normally go this long, but I never meant a word I didn't enjoy saying.
I love it. Folks, thank you so much for sticking around and watching. This is why are you like this? There we go. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and then go and send this to every single person you know that lives even close to Indiana so that they can make sure that they are voting for the best candidate on their ballot this November. And then check out the links below so you can learn more about the campaign, like I said, and how you can help out. Go donate. Go, everybody watching, go make a $5,000 check. Send it. You heard the P.O. Box.
Absolutely. P.O. Box 451.
451.
Indiana.
Of course, the libertarians are based in the city of sin. And guys, we'll hear more from Donald and some other fantastic candidates on the 5th for the election night fight club. We've got co-hosts including Maine State Senator Eric Brakey, Biblical Anarchy host Jacob Winograd, LP National Comms Director Brian McWilliams, and so many more. So come hang out 9 p.m. Eastern till we decide we're going to stop right here on Free Speech Media. Until then, keep up the fight. Don, thanks again. This was so much fun.
Thanks for having me, David.
All right, guys. Have a good one.